Glad you're here. This is 52nd. No, it's going to be 54th. Started in 71. This is the 54th Aerostar Maintenance and Safety Convention. I hope you're all having a good time and enjoying things. If you have any questions, we'll have a session where you can ask questions here after a while. I usually start off with a joke, if I can remember the joke here. Oh, this is Berdella. She said she missed me. Normally that would be good, but she was reloading. Well, this celebration is dedicated to Ron Cox. Please, if you think of something you and Ron had talked about, or you'd called Ron about, or even flown with Ron and something happened interesting, please write it down because it'll be in the log, the winter log. We got one in production right now. It'll be coming out here another month or so, and go from there with a summer fall unit magazine. We have.
I got something to say about that. I'm Ron Cox.
Oh. You're who? Who are you? Yeah. The other thing I wanted to talk about is we have lots of Aerostars for sale currently. Every model of the Aerostar, I know of a person who's selling it. So if you know somebody interested in Aerostar, or if you're interested in one, please talk to me, talk to Jimmy Mullen, talk to Joel Stout, talk to anybody else who happens to be representing these people. This happens to be Dennis Bukowski, 602P. He's selling it. It's a beautiful airplane. It's under annual right now at Jimmy Mullen's shop. But I know of 600s that are for sale. I know of 601As that are for sale, 601B, 602, 601P for sale. And they're very low-time airframes, very nice airplanes. So if you know somebody who's looking for one, please, these I will introduce you to the seller if you're a legitimate buyer. If you're really interested in buying, if you're interested in kicking tires, don't call me. Go to some dealer and let him deal with you. But we don't make any money from that. I don't charge anything for that. That's part of your benefits. I'll introduce you to a seller of an airplane that quietly doesn't advertise the airplane for sale. But that's one of the benefits of being in this organization is selling of airplanes internally, quietly, of nice airplanes. Let's see. Bruce, do you have something you'd like to say to them?
I use my stage voice from here to say welcome up there. Thank you so much for coming to the convention. I've been doing Aerostars flying now for over 4 years. I've always learned something that makes me a safer pilot and a better pilot. And I also learned some things about people I may not have wanted to know. You see it around the bar, but that's okay. We are fortunate to have such an active organization. It's important for all of us to continue to advance the brand. We need to keep this viable aircraft alive. And as I said in the magazine every so often, it's also important to sell private aviation at your local airport. All you people are at usually a smaller airport. And airports and flying privately is somewhat under attack. Most people, especially young people, don't want to be a pilot. My own 2 sons who were in diapers in my airplane all these years when they were young, we didn't want to learn to fly. That's a problem. So when you're at your local airport, you talk to people, talk to your local representatives, occasional article in the newspaper about something that happened at your airport. We need to keep advancing private aviation. It's important. We've got to keep our voice in front of people. So again, when you're back to your local airport, do what you can to get a hold of your Chamber of Commerce, whatever, and advance private aviation. And of course, always advance the Aerostar brand. There's nothing important about that. and look forward to having a great next 2 days. And I always learn something from these things, and I can't wait for it to get going again. Well, thanks very much.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to say before we get going?
Are there any first-time members here?
Oh, yeah. Any first-time members here?
Got one out there, right here.
All right, great. Hi, Tim.
Did you tell them about the initiation thing?
No, I'll leave that for later.
Drinks all around.
Well, first up this morning, I guess, is Fred. All right. Fred is one of our authorized Aerostar training gurus, and he's got a little presentation for us on stabilization, I believe. You want
Slide flipper thing?
Sure do.
Yep. Okay. So I can do that.
I don't know if here's the walk around mic.
I'm probably just going to stand right here.
Okay.
So. So I'm going to talk a little bit this morning about stabilized approaches and go-arounds. You know, put it there as the secret to fantastic landings. You know, so that's what I always teach my students when they're flying, because Oh, sorry about that. Yeah. Needs to be a little taller than that. Gosh, Ken. I feel like I was at the podium with the presidents, who were Hillary or something, had the low one there. So anyway, I'm always, all my students, when they fly, a lot of times they have bad landings. And I said, that's because you had a bad approach, right? If you have a good approach, you almost always have a good landing. Okay. And so how do you flip this thing? Which button do I have to push? That's what I thought. I'm in Ohio. Actually, just up the road here, a little village called Yellow Springs. If that doesn't work, guys, I can probably just walk up there and flip the slides on occasion. You want me to I'll just flip them by hand. See if this one works too. Okay. So anyway, there's a few things I'll go over here. Loss of control accidents. There's a loss of control work group, and they made some recommendations. Stabilized approaches, and we'll talk about some go-arounds, and then some tips and tricks. Let's see if I can get this. So, although, approaches aren't always the highest number of accidents, there's maneuvering. So this work group came through here and said, yeah, these are the types of areas where you get a lot of fatal accidents. Well, if you're going to flip, Ken, that's perfect. I appreciate that. Go ahead and flip to the next slide, please. So there was a work group, and they came up and said, well, why do we have these accidents? We're all, we talked about this yesterday in my ground school. We're all, almost always single pilot, right? And we're trying to do all sorts of things. We're trying to fly an airplane. We're trying to navigate. We're trying to communicate. So we got lots of things on our plate. unstabilized approaches, you know, how many times have you come in and say, the ATC says, you know, you come in and you know, want you to keep your speed up and, you know, give you a late descent. And then a lot of times, you know, people aren't worried about, you know, aren't looking at their go-around procedures. I don't know how many of you are like this. You know, I know some people that, you know, they may not have flown because it's winter in Ohio and the weather isn't real great, right? You know, they haven't flown since October and it's spring. So a lot of times, extended periods without flying. Insufficient transition training, you know, hopefully everyone gets good training in the Aerostar. It's a fairly complex airplane and you know, it can hurt you, right? You can get hurt in any airplane, but these are more complex, got higher speed. A lot, you know, I also fly with some people is like, you know, they get in, you take off, not even 500 foot off the deck, and what are they pushing? The autopilot button, right? You know, and they're not autopilot for, you know, until you get to your destination. You know, you're not developing your skills or keeping your skills up by doing that. I don't know about this flight after use of drugs, but I think there are some, yes. I think that also means, you know, over-the-counter medications too. I mean, you can take some things, you know, you got a stuffy nose or something, and that can affect you. And sometimes the lack of aeronautical decision skills. Next slide, Ken. Don't mind. So why a stabilized approach? You know, right here, there's a study that says, you know, if you come in high and fast, you're 2.3 times more likely to become unstable, and it's not good. And you know, this is kind of close to me because I have 3 separate instances. I got 2 guys that I know that came in hot. One of them was in a turboprop, 1,000 feet above the final approach fix, and 200 knots. You know, I don't fly turboprops, but you know, 200 knots is probably not the right approach speed for a light twin turboprop, right? Yeah, and you know, and those guys all lost their lives, right? Because they came crashing down, and you know, and they went down below the glide slope and hit the ground before the airport, right? Not cool. So you know, next slide. So what's a stabilized approach? You know, constant angle glide path coming down, and you know, and it gives you, you know, touchdown zone there at the very beginning, and you flare, and you know, you're not doing excessive rates of descent. There it says, you know, 500 to 700 feet a minute. In our airplanes, what's a good rate of descent for us? Probably about 600-700 feet a minute, right? Sometimes, you know, I fly with some instrument students, you know, they're learning, right? They're not as experienced as most of you guys, but it's often you get in there and, okay, they're trying to catch a glide slope or something, and you look over at the VSI and what's it showing? 1,500, 2,000 feet per minute, right? That's, yeah, and then they try to recover from that. And you can see some more experienced pilots sometimes do that. So, you know, well, okay. Yeah, go ahead and flip to the next slide there. Ah, okay. So anyway, this kind of shows you what your rate of descent should be for various speeds. I don't know about you guys. I usually fly, you know, they're going to be about 120 to 140 knots ground speed. Certainly not 160 on an approach. And those are the published rates there for a 3-degree glide slope. So 600 to 700 feet per minute. And if you don't want to do the math and, you know, figure it out, you can just go ground speed, multiply it times 5. You don't have to do all the, you know, memorize all the exact numbers. And, you know, most of us aren't flying that close anyhow. Okay, we'll see if this works, Joel. Look at that, it's magic. So, we'll talk about IFR and VFR approaches here. IFR, I think you should be stabilized when you're 1,000 feet above the touchdown elevation, right? If you're doing something and you're making large corrections, that's not going to work. You want to be at your approach speed, and like I said, I've been with guys, and you watch them, you watch the VSI go down below 1,000, and even further is like, this isn't going to end up pretty, right? So you want to be on glide slope, and you want to have that 700 foot a minute or less. We're not flying, the space shuttle that's coming down, like a brick. You should have your landing configuration done, landing checklist done. So I always say, before you get to the final approach fix, you should have your landing checklist done, and you're ready to go in a landing configuration. Some people, I like to put the gear down just before I get to the final approach fix, right? A dot or two above glide slope intercept, but some people do it right at the final approach fix, but you certainly don't want to be putting it down after the final approach fix. I don't, in my opinion, and I've seen people do that too. They come down and sometimes they just forget that they should put their gear down. Yes. Okay, so that's for IFR. For VFR, you certainly want to be stabilized by 500 feet above the touchdown elevations. Typically, if you're flying a VFR traffic pattern, you're about 500 feet when you're rolling out on final, right? Typically. So you shouldn't be doing, a lot of excessive diving or anything there. Again, you want to be on your approach speed, and on the IFR one, like I said, a lot of times, I come in, just last weekend I was coming in, I had my stepson flying, and ATC puts us down, and, I got the GPS to tell you, what my vertical descent rate should be to get to the final approach fix. And it's going, it says 2,000 feet a minute. Now we're VMC, and I'm like, okay, and I let my kid, the step kid fly, and he goes, well, this kind of bites, because we're trying to dive down to get to the final approach fix, and it says 2,000 feet a minute. And I said, well, yeah, we're VMC. Well, we can probably make this work, but, and he says, it's tough. And, ATC does that to us all the time, right? I mean, at least I get it a lot. I don't know about you guys, but so, you got to be vigilant to that. Then the other thing I see people not doing is, okay, we're going to make the approach. Certainly, by gosh, we're going to land, right? But what if you're not going to land? A lot of people don't look at what their go-around procedure is going to be or what the missed approach is. Obviously, everybody knows a missed approach is a climb, right? That's pretty easy. But what do you got to do if there's terrain around you? You might have to, do a turn or something. You should have those things kind of thinking ahead. But a lot of people, they just don't think about the missed approach. Are you going to go to an intersection or VOR? What heading you need to go to? So if you're on a stabilized approach, it gives you a little bit of time to think about it. You're not going, well, okay, I'm too fast, I'm trying to slow the airplane down, and not thinking about the go-around. So stabilized approach, it gives you time. You can plan for, just like you do for your takeoff, right? Okay. These are the approaches everyone loves. Doesn't everybody love the non-precision approach with the dive and drive? How many people are doing those? Yeah, on occasion, right? They're kind of going away. You don't see very many dive and drive ones anymore. But what's an alternate to doing the dive and drive? You can calculate a 3-degree glide slope, right? You can figure out, well, where I should be, what kind of rate of descent I need. And I know these were very, this was the thing back in the day. But the big problem with that is you dive, you go down, and then, people inevitably dive through their MDA, right? Or they don't make the appropriate power setting. So you got to do a lot more thinking. It's not, to me, it's nice to get the final approach fix, set my power, set my configuration, and I'm just diving down there, and you can almost fly hands-free, right? Okay, you should always look at your handbook, your performance charts, emergency procedures and systems. The destabilizing factors, like I said, excessive speed, excessive altitude, ATC, it's inevitable, right? When you come in, they go, oh, well, you got airline traffic behind you, he's doing 150, 160, can you keep your speed up to 160? Yeah, I can keep it up to 160, right? But then what do I do if I'm 160 coming down that glide slope, and now I'm all of a sudden 500 feet off the deck, and I'm still doing 160. And generally if it's an airliner, you got a long runway, but they may tell you keep the speed up for some other reason, and if you got a shorter runway, it could be an issue. So, and so they're just going on with the ATC issue there. We're all pilots. Most of us are above average, right? I think everyone in this room is above average. At least in our minds, right? So you think you can do it, and you're going to accommodate, and you say, hey, yeah, the ATC, you said, I'm going to, keep the speed up, or we're not going to be able, not lay you down soon enough. Oh yeah, I can do that, right? Because I'm better than the average pilot, right? So obviously we're not all better than average, because to be an average there's got to be some below, right? Okay. How many CFIs are in here? Yeah, a few of us. How many are actively instructing? A few of you. If you're doing primary students, how many of you try to salvage your student's approach? Right? Does that ever happen? Well, maybe not. Sometimes I've been guilty of it in the past. I'll admit it. Guy comes in, primarily for primary training. Yeah, he's coming in a little bit high. You can bring it back, right? Bring the power back. So what have I just done? I trained a guy a bad habit, right? And, in your initial training, that goes with you. A lot of times you remember the stuff that your primary instructor gave you, and it sticks with you for life. And so not all of you are CFIs, some of you are, but, let's not do that, right? Like I said, I've been guilty of that in the past, and you really don't want to do that. And if you've been taught that way, and a lot of times, it sticks with you. So no reason to try to salvage landings. You can always do a go around, right? And so a lot of times, you don't want to do it because you don't want the student to do a go around. Then it takes another 20 minutes or 15 minutes out of your training period. But it's always good to just let them do a go around. And so when do I do a go around? Whenever you have an unstable approach. And if you're below 1,000 feet and your IFR and you're above the glide slope or below it, you certainly might as well just do a missed approach, right? How many times, a lot of guys come in and they're not stable and they're trying to do that approach, and that's why I gave that example. I got 3 instances I know, 2 of the pilots I knew, and they're no longer with us because came in high and fast, and they went down right below the glide slope and hit the ground. So when other times you have to go around, the runway might be out of service. Hopefully you checked the NOTAMs and you knew that there was an X on there before you got to the airport, right? Could be traffic on the runway. A lot of times we get deer, so that's a form of traffic. Or a guy pulls out in front of you. You got to be vigilant for that. And if you're going to do a go around and missed approach, make that decision. Make it early and stick with it. Just don't go, okay, well, now I think I can do it. The deer just moved out of the way, and I'm at 300 feet off the ground, and just quarter-mile final, and the deer just moved. Well, what about all his buddies, right? Because they don't travel alone. So, missed approach priorities, go around, always aviate. It's aviate, navigate, communicate, right? Maintain your aircraft control. So, I always say, when I'm doing a missed approach, it's power up, pitch up, climb, right? Get out of there. So then your next thing on your missed approach, where are you going to go to? You got to figure out where you're going to navigate to. Follow the missed approach procedure, or a lot of times ATC will give you instructions, right? VFR, go to the runway threshold, climb, and then re-enter the pattern. It looks like a repeat there. Oh. Navigate, communicate, so then you also got to, switch frequencies, maybe. You should be prepared for that. If you're talking to ATC, say, well, what do I want to do next? A lot of times you're doing a missed approach, what are you going to do next? Did you miss it because the weather was lousy, or did you miss it because you were unstable and not being a good pilot? Or, well, I shouldn't say not being a good pilot. I should just say, you made a boo-boo, right? So you didn't quite make the approach like you wanted to, or if the weather's bad, you got to figure out your next destination. So if you discover you're off of the glide slope, off of your approach, not being stable, got to do a go around. Power up, pitch up, clean up. That's pretty straightforward. Okay, automation. Everyone loves automation. So, like I said, there are some people that I've flown with, and not just single engine airplanes. Some are in twins, and pretty capable twins, and they'll get in and they'll just push that autopilot button, right? I mean, I love my autopilot when it works, right? Certainly, when you're flying somewhere, you want to use your autopilot if you can. But if every approach you make is engaging the autopilot, and I'm going to fly, cross country, and have the autopilot fly the approach, you're probably doing yourself a disservice, right? So that's why I say hand fly departures and arrivals when possible. It's nice to make sure the autopilot can do it. But you should certainly get some hand flying in, because those skills are going to atrophy. Okay, tips and tricks. I guess these are builds here. Always plan for the missed approach. I think the airline pilots always say that's what they do. They're not planning to land. They're planning to do a missed approach. Preset the frequencies you'll need. We all sometimes forget to do that, and you go, "Oh, what's the next frequency?" And then you're scrambling and trying to put that in the radio when you need to be flying. Manage your distractions. I was telling some of the guys yesterday that we were on a trip, and I had my granddaughter and wife, and they were in the back, and my wife can be a little chatty, right? And the granddaughter is also chatty. They're the same gene pool somehow. And You know, and my wife knows better, right? She's flown with me a long time, and she goes, you know, when we're getting ready to land, you know, you should be quiet, right? And, you know, when ATC talks, you should be quiet. But no, they're back there blabber-mouthing, so, you know, I got automation, right? I shut them off. You know, and they get a little upset. They don't hear any radio calls, but, you know, it's like, sorry, you know when to shut up, and you should, and you don't. So it's, you know, there's other distractions. You might drop your iPad or something like that, but, you know, it's always aviate, navigate, communicate, right? You always maintain control of the airplane. Yeah, a lot of people go out and they'll, you know, you should practice your missed approaches and your go-arounds. I think, you know, most people, when they practice instrument approaches, they will do a missed approach. A lot of people won't do a go-around, though, right? You know, how many times do you go, oh, well, you know, I simulate a deer or a truck that is pulled out in front of me and just do a go-around. Most of the time when you're VFR, you're just landing. Yeah. Okay. Should always do refresher training. It's always good. Wings program is pretty good. Returning to flying after a period of inactivity. I don't know. I suspect most of you guys don't take a long time off, but there are a lot of pilots out there that, you know, winter comes, especially up here in the north, and, you know, it's icing and for 3 or 4 months, and you know, and it's cold, and you don't want to drag the airplane out of the hangar, and then spring comes. Oh yeah, I got to fly, but, you know, oh, I haven't flown in half a year, but that's cool, right? Not a big deal. Well, it might be. Okay, quiz time. So you guys get to talk because you guys haven't said anything here. So, what's the right answer here? Okay. What should I demonstrate that? Sometimes I do those all on my own, but, you know, I don't really want to demonstrate them. Okay, you all should know this one. I'm trying to make it easy for everyone. You know, that's got 6 choices here. Well, I know the audience that I'm working with, so. So, you know, should always fly with a CFI. I mean, I do a couple, you know, I probably do about 4 rides a year, I think. You know, I work at a flight school, and you know, we got to do a ride there. Then I got, you know, recurrent training for this, and, you know, another one for 421, and so, yeah, I get a fair amount. And practice. A lot of people don't do wings, but you know, FAA hasn't made that the most easy thing to do recently. And that was it. It's kind of quick. Any questions, comments? Okay.
Brad, you didn't talk about, I think, one of the most important questions about go-arounds.
Uh-huh.
Single engine go-arounds in an aerostat. Yes, no, maybe? Repeat the question.
Okay. Single engine go-arounds. Yes, no, or maybe.
In the Aerostar.
In the Aerostar. Yeah, I got it.
Well, keep in mind, not all Aerostars are the same. Right.
Yeah, I understand that. You know, so when, you know, I've got a 680, and when I did my ATP, I had to do a single engine go around. You know, lightweight, 2 people, kind of a piece of cake, really, right?
There's a lot of decisions to make before.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But in real life, I mean, okay, ATP training, got it, right? You know, I did that, got the T-shirt. Would I want to do that in real life? Not really. You know, if I'm single engine, I mean, it's just my opinion. I'd be looking for a place that's got like a really long runway, a good instrument approach. You know, would I be going into, you know, Greene County where Dave is? Probably not. You know, the other engine might have to be on fire, but I don't know. You guys got opinions on that? Right. Yeah. Yeah. Around here, okay. Yeah. So he's talking about, you know, your climb gradient. So you need to have 200 feet per nautical mile or better, depending upon what area you're in. And you may not be able to do that with a single engine on an Aerostar. Depends on which model you're in. You know, if you're in a 700 and you're lightweight, I think you can do that. Yeah. I mean, you're not going to be climbing like a rocket, but yeah, you can definitely do that. But you know, personally, I wouldn't want to do a single engine go around in real life.
If you're doing a single engine landing, you've already committed to not getting the ball out.
Yeah.
It's a done deal.
Yeah.
If you have to second guess yourself, what condition would present itself that you would have to second guess yourself and do a single engine go around?
Okay. So Tom's bringing up, why in the world, what conditions would make you want to do a single engine go around in an Aerostar? About the only thing is if something pulled out in front of you on the runway, and even then I'd probably go on a sidestep or something. Yeah, what's the chances of, take the taxiway, take the grass, but yeah, because, you know, it's the insurance company's problem or your problem, you know, sometimes. Yeah. The idea is you want to walk away from it, right? You want to be safe, and you know, like I said, you obviously choose if you choose an airport that's like an airline airport, you know, declare an emergency, and chances are nobody's going to come out on the runway in front of you, right? At an international airport or an airline serviced airport. Okay.
So, I have routinely been asked to maintain a Lexus last
Yep.
very difficult to be 2,000 feet off the ground and stabilize on approach and also deal with latencies.
Right.
Their wishes. I am very curious about the specific chain effects that would lead someone to be fast in time and also building something around going to the airport. What would someone do, particularly in a distant twin, where the power is almost immediate, where you built a speed power like that? What happens?
So he's asking, I think you're referring to the guys that I know, right? That why they how did they get set up in? I think they were trying to. I mean, who knows, right? In one instance, I think there was discussion that there was maybe icing that he was trying to get through, an icing layer. But in a twin turboprop, I don't know if I'd be that worried about icing, but maybe it was, and he was trying to get down and capture that glide slope. And so, like I said, he was in that instance he was above the final approach fix by 1,000 feet. And trying to capture that glide slope, and he dove down, and by the time he realized he was below the glide slope, applied the power, and it was a little bit late. The other guy was in a Cirrus, and that one actually, the Cirrus is a telltale, right? It's got all the what is it, Garmin 1000 or something? It's got all that crap in there. Okay, yeah, that's a technical term as an engineer.
Too much stuff.
But it's got a lot of stuff in it, and it, you know, it tells you throttle position, manifold pressure, RPMs, and all that. And in that case, he was coming down and had almost no power, and then at the very end, he realized, oh, whoops, and you could see the power go up to full power, but that was only about a second before impact.
So they're not paying attention. So they're
Right.
Googling drive slope and not realizing that.
Right. Right. Yeah.
That's the autopilot thing. That's happened. That everybody's had it happen. Forget that the autopilot approach mode and goes right through that light slope and you miss it. Now your full scale deflection is right there.
Yeah. Yeah, so what Eric was saying on autopilot, you're coming in, you hit the final approach flex, or maybe even before that, and you haven't hit it, you haven't loaded in the approach mode, right? So it's just flying, straight and level, but it doesn't capture the glide slope. So then you go, oh, there goes the glide slope. I didn't engage the autopilot properly. I think that's what you're trying to say, Eric. And then, okay, now I'm going to dive down and catch it, right? Probably not a good decision, especially if you're IMC.
UPS did that in Birmingham with A300.
Yeah.
They didn't have to correct that and wait for it.
Yeah.
They did it for the speed, we were right there.
Yeah. Yes.
Can I share just one piece of information
Uh-huh.
that I think really underscores the importance of what you just talked about? So in the TBM community, they have a product that uploads all of their flight data as soon as they land.
Yeah.
Well, and they analyze all that data. And they have published criteria for a stabilized approach for their aircraft. So over 8 months, with 100,000 approaches monitored, involving 29 accidents, 73% of the accidents were non-stabilized approaches. All right, 0% of the accidents, none of the accidents involve pilots who comply with stabilized approach criteria at least 68% of the time. And 62% of the accidents involve pilots who comply with a stabilized approach less than 25% of the time. So what it tells you is that if you tend to fly stabilized approaches, even not perfectly all the time, but if you tend to do that, your accident rate goes way down. If you tend not to, your accident rate goes way down.
Yeah.
That's hard data.
Yeah.
That's hard data.
So did everybody hear that? Okay. Yeah, that kind of goes with that chart I showed up there. If you're unstabilized, you're like, they said 2.3 times likely to have, an accident. I don't know how accurate those numbers are. I mean, it's statistics, right? Right. Yeah, that's pretty good. So, yeah. Yeah.
Roger?
Roger.
Practice go around, training and everything. We're never had to do it.
Uh-huh.
But my question is that in almost 20 years of looking at airplane, come down, sit around, and a thing all of a sudden veers off the other way. We had that happen 3 times, and can't figure out why it happens. It's a knee-jerk reaction to get back on the runway again, or to steer the right direction when you touch the runway. Does anybody experience that? And how's that happen? I mean, there's no crossover involved, nothing really. It just veered off one way or the other.
So Roger, he's landing the airplane, not doing a missed approach or go around. See if I get this right, Raj. And he touches down and the airplane veers to the left or the right. No apparent reason, not a crosswind, just an act of God or something, right?
Or sticky
Yeah.
brake?
Yeah. I don't know if that's a nose wheel thing or your brakes.
In 11 years or almost 20 years, it's only happened 3 times.
Okay.
3 times.
Since the 172, that was doing a go-around. The girl in front of us did a go-around. She was off in the air, and we had to touch down behind her, running through. And then all of a sudden it veered off. And I just, knee-jerk reaction.
Wow.
Get it going the other way, I didn't know if it was gonna happen.
Yeah.
But it didn't work.
I'll get you.
So, anyway, it was just luck, but I'm ready now, but anytime we touch down, I'm ready to hit the rudder one way or the other.
Wow. I also recommend wide runways for you.
Howard.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yes, sir.
Scott.
So it sounds like the first indication of a problem was the gear wasn't coming up.
Correct.
Yeah, right.
Correct. And then
So-
when I tried it, okay, I'll put it down again, and I'll try to bring it back up. Tried it a couple of times, and I don't know if every time it
Yeah,
came
right.
up, it kept,
Yeah.
kept twisting it a little more or not. So that when it did come down, it was at a few angles instead of
Yeah.
straight.
Any other questions? Bruce?
Observation is, it was a long time ago, I had gear down, but an unsafe light that didn't go off, so it was showing no nose gear down. Check the wall.
Yeah.
Okay. So two things, one is I went to a nice big airport that had lots of crash equipment.
Yep.
And then the tower said, you want to do a flyby? I said, well, it really doesn't matter, because it's not going to change what I'm going to do. I'm going to land as slow, as soft as I can, as far as I can. And all the boys in that area, it turned out we broke the wire. But it was interesting, it's the exact same day I was there, which is strange as would happen. A twin engine, Chieftain was coming in, same kind of thing, had a problem. And I watched the guy on final, and to save the engines, he shuts down both engines and glides in. Now, I can give a shit less. When I'm doing a couple engines, and it saves my life, I can just land 20 knots forward, because I'm dragging it under power. I'm going to do that, which is exactly what it is. That is a little wire. The
whole thing about, take a look, fly by and get all real fancy. No, it's an airplane. They make them airplane, I think. Whatever.
Yeah.
And so, try not to stay in the airplane and give yourself all the options. 11,000 foot runway, all the crash crew is there. I don't care if some airlines can't land because I'm on the floor.
Right.
That's where I'm going.
Yeah.
Not landing on the grass and all that. No.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark?
Yeah.
One helpful thing that you can do in a situation where you're not sure if the gear's down a lot, and you got 2 out of 3 green lights on, is test the gear horn. You bring the throttle
Right.
all the way back, and you don't get the horn, the gear's down a lot. It's probably just a electrical issue or something with the circuit, power's electrical. If you get the gear horn, then you know, well, there's a possibility.
That's a good indication that the gears are down. Yeah.
But it's not going to be fatal, just one's the trick's going to clean up. Pull the broken wire.
Repeat that.
Oh, yeah. So what Mark was saying is, if you're coming in for a landing and you don't get 3 green lights, right? Only 2 or 1, or a good indication is, pull the throttles back, and if you get the gear warning horn, or if you don't get the horn, right, you're pretty sure that the gear's down. I mean, hopefully, yeah. Yeah, you could swap the bulbs, and yeah, but
Push to test,
there's
too.
a push to test also, because I've had that happen before where it said the nose gear's not down, and it was at night, and everybody, ATCs, everybody's giving help, all the other pilots on the air said, hey, can you change a light bulb? Well, first of all, it's night, I don't really want to mess with it, and there's a push to test, and the push to test says the bulb's good, right? So.
How many have replaced those bulbs with LED bulbs? Very good,
Yeah.
very good. That's what I do when I do an annual on an airplane is I replace those 3 bulbs with LED bulbs.
Yeah.
I did I not do it with yours, Tim? Part number down?
Oh, part number?
Oh, you buy it from Aircraft Spruce and just key in the number 327, which is the incandescent bulb number, and it'll reference the proper LED bulb. 327 is the incandescent bulb number, and it'll reference when you key it into the Aircraft Spruce for LED bulbs. They're $6 a piece or something like that.
Not sure I can afford that.
You don't think it's worth it?
No, I'm just kidding. $6. It's like,
Wow.
no, that's awesome.
They were talking.
With all the other $1,000 bills and $2,000 bills, yeah, we can afford that.
Talking about single engine go around. There was an accident of one of our members several years ago is it Greenville, Maine? Greenfield, Maine, I think it is. He was out of Canada. I can't remember his name, but he and his wife and his daughter came to Aerostar meeting, and very nice people, but very low time pilot. He only had 600 hours total time. Transitioned to a Superstar 700. How he got insured and all that sort of thing is beyond me, but he did, and he just recently got a multi-engine rating. He was coming out of, he was at flight level 190 in VFR conditions, the VFR the whole route, and he declared an emergency because he said he lost power. Now, what lost power meant, nobody knows. I don't know if the accident report reflects any further information or not. But because of his lack of experience of flying an Aerostar, he was so fast when he got to the airport out of 19,000 feet that he had to go around. And on the go around, he got so slow on his base to final that he crashed short of the runway due to stalling the airplane and killed all 3 of them on board. So experience, I don't think you need to be out there doing single engine go-arounds, but there's one that failed, and it failed because of lack of experience of flying an Aerostar and lack of experience as an aviator. So, Don?
Yeah.
wheels down and the downwind, I got 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
Which the rest of the test still got a light. Throttle back, got a gear on. I went, okay, I got one still stem something. I was by myself, left seat, and I said, I gotta find out which one in advance. So look in the mirror, spin, you can see the nose here hanging down, look out the left side, I can see that. So I slid my butt over to the right seat, look down, and I can see that
Brace.
that strut is barely hanging out. I said, well, so I set the wheels up, talked to the tower, and I said, hey, I'm gonna just break off out of here, I'll stick around, but I'm gonna cycle gear up, you know, when it comes to it happens. So I did that, still nothing. I put it in a dive, pulled it up, put the sheets to it, threw it out again, still nothing. There was a little ET6, one of the Pensacola naval boys. He was taking off, he called up and he said, sir, can I come up and take a look? I said, sure, come on. Get on the right side, and I'll get underneath it. So he came up, got on my way, said, sir, you got a white strut just hanging out, looks like the gear door's hanging open about, maybe 8 to 10 inches.
Banana bell crank.
No,
Nope.
that's what I'm telling you. I cycled it and cycled it, and it just kept running through my mind. What am I going to tell you when it's down there? Just slide down the runway. I can't get 3 out of 3. And I stayed with it probably 15, 20. I forgot how many times I cycled it. And then the neighbor boy says, I got to get going and I got to be home before sunset. I got to get back to Dayton, Pensacola. So I said, yeah, he took off. I cycled it a few more times. Oh, I'm sorry, back up. Just before he broke formation, he yelled, whoa, something just flew off the airplane, but the gears came down. I said, does it look like it's down like the other one? He goes, yes, sir. He said, I got to go. I said, thanks, I'll catch up with you later. So I looked, 3 greens down in line, landed, uneventful, taxied up, and told the boys, hey, Jesse, flip this thing over to me right there. You know what it was? You know, on our strut where we have the big clamp that holds that brake line with the little clamp,
Sure.
that stud on the large clamp,
Yep.
that damn stud broke off, and the stainless steel brake cable caught that little closeout
Mm-hmm.
in the wing root area, and it just hung on it. And I worked hard on that damn gear so many times. When he yelled, whoa, a piece of that wing root bearing about that long flew out from underneath the airplane and the wheels. So the moral of the story is, don't give up.
Don't give up.
It was starting to get dark, but I could fly in the dark, and I started a lot of fuel. I was determined I didn't gonna slide it in with no gas or.
Fly the plane and don't give up. Fly the plane and don't give up.
Don't give up.
Okay.
2 out of 3 is good.
Lori?
Okay, how about becoming a fast team rep so we can get waste credit for this out?
That sounds good, yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, it'd be nice to have a fast rep here.
it would be, yeah.
And we get the waste credit.
It's a good idea.
Anybody else have any questions?
If I can go back to the original, unstabilized approaches and all that, I'm a believer, a little experience in aviation, the 1,000 and 500 feet is reliable. You gotta live by that. If you don't, you're gonna end up gas saturated. And what are you going to, that's not your priority, but you're not sure.
Yeah.
You know, you're aiming at getting down. You got tunnel vision. You don't see anything but that. I mean, we were hammered on that in my previous life. No. 500 feet of your farm, gone. If you can't do that, you gotta go around. And that means not just stabilize, it means configure. It means everything down.
Right.
Just like it said.
Yeah.
Guys, you gotta, you good instructor, you gotta keep hammering on that.
Yeah.
That is so awesome right here. Go around the done.
Yeah.
You just get a little more flight time that way. Great.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's true, but, you know, a lot of human nature is they don't want to do a go-around, right? You know, and so you got to resist that. Because,
But if you keep hammering and people become so big, I'm not going to be the, exception.
yeah, thanks for your feedback on that. Yeah, you don't want to be tomorrow's headlines. I'd just soon, you know, have dinner tonight or, you know, see my wife tomorrow or whatever, so. Okay, anything else?
Fred, thank you so
Okay,
much.
thanks, guys.
Appreciate you.